Shavua Tov. We're now on Daf Chavav Amid Beis, and just quickly reading the Gemara until the point where we got up to. The Gemara says, "Hachanami lo tzricha." We don't need Rav's statement that the Rishonos don't have to be choser al achim, but in the case of the nafal bezuach erzu. So the second one, after the chalitza, the first one, let's say, for example, we said that Levi died first without any children, and nafla chada, Levi's wife Rachel, fell for yibum, and chalatzle Ruvain. Ruvain immediately gave chalitza to Rachel Eshes Levi after Levi's dying, passing away. Before Leah, the sister, fell for yibum, and therefore that chalitza is a chalitza kshera. And since she was muteres to the yavam, there's no iser of achos kukaso, and therefore when Yehuda dies subsequently without any children, and then Leah falls for yibum, is chalatz le Shimon. Immediately Shimon was choletz before the other sister fell for yibum, and that chalitza is also a chalitza kshera because she was muteres b'yibum. And then Yisachar dies without children, v'nafla idach, and Sarah, the wife of Yisachar, falls for yibum in front of Ruvain and Shimon. And the din that Sarah is not allowed to Ruvain and Shimon because she's achos chalutzasa, so there's no possibility of yibum because there already was a chalitza to Rachel and Leah, her sister, and therefore her sisters, and therefore the chalitza becomes what we call a chalitza psula. That was the new concept that we encountered here for the first time on Daf Chavav Amid Beis, a chalitza psula. And in the case of chalitza psula, it's not enough for one of the various brothers to give chalitza to remove the zika for all the brothers, but rather each one of the brothers has to give his own chalitza, has to implement his own chalitza. Therefore, chalitzla high, when Ruvain does chalitza, is mafka chalitza psula, just zika. So he can only remove his own zika. He cannot remove the zika from his other brothers. Chalitzla high. Now Shimon gives her chalitza in mifka, and with his chalitza is mafkia zika, so his own zika. And all this is because of the concept of chalitza psula, which means that since the achim cannot do yibum, they have no choice, they are compelled to do chalitza. That's called a zika grua, chalitza grua, and therefore the chalitza is only mafkia that zika to that particular yavam, and that achim, the other achim have to give their own chalitza. So the Gemara now asks the kasha. Here's where we got up to at the end of last week. So we are now up to Veha Omar Rav, which is 4 lines up before the end of the Amud. How is it possible to tell me that Rav holds Yesh Zika? We have a Gemara back on Daf Yud Zayin Amid Beis. Shomeres Yavam Shemeisa Mutar Be'ima. And Rav said that the reason why he's allowed to marry the mother of the Shomeres Yavam is because Ein Zika. If it would be Zika, then it would be the mother of his wife. But we don't consider Zika as issues. So how do you square that with Rav's statement here, which is all totally based on the fact that Yesh Zika? And the Gemara says that when Rav says that chalitza psula requires a chalitza from every one of the brothers, that's l'divrei Omer Yesh Zika Kamer. He was only pointing out that if you hold l'man di Omer Yesh Zika, you're going to need a chalitza from each one of the brothers. And now we're up to Shmuel. Shmuel Amar. Shmuel says in this case we're 3 sisters, and each one of them lost a husband, and they fell, all 3 of them, in front of 2 achim liyibum echad choletz lekulam. Then one gives chalitza for all 3 achios, yevamos, and the chalitza of the second and the third achios, even though it is called a chalitza psula because there was no possibility of yibum, nevertheless Shmuel holds all you need is one chalitza, even in a case from one brother, even in a case of a chalitza psula. And that removes the zika with that one chalitza, because that chalitza implemented by one of the brothers as a representative for all the brothers, she doesn't need a chalitza from the other brothers, even though the second brother, if he were to do chalitza to the second sister, it would be a chalitza kshera, but he doesn't even have to give her a chalitza kshera because she was already nifteres for chalitza psula. So the Gemara now is going to raise an objection on Shmuel, who says that they're all mutaros, all three sisters are mutaros, with one chalitza of one yavam representing all the brothers, which means that a chalitza psula is enough to be considered and upgraded as a regular chalitza, even if there is a possibility that the next brother could do a chalitza kshera. Michti shamina leil Shmuel diamar chalitza ma'alya beina. We have another statement of Shmuel in which he's committed himself to the position that you need, in order to remove a zika through chalitza, you need a chalitza kshera. And a chalitza psula is not going to remove the zika. The Omar Shmuel, here we turn to Daf Chav Zayin and Aleph, cholatz li achios lo nifteru tsaros. So let's give a case. Again, Shimon and Levi are married respectively to Rachel and Leah, who are sisters. Shimon married Leah, and Levi married Rachel. Shimon has another wife by the name of Sarah, and Levi has another wife by the name of Rivka. So we've got Shimon and Levi married to Rachel and Leah. Shimon is married to Leah, but he also has another wife named Sarah. Levi is married to Rachel. He has another wife named Rivka. Now, Shimon and Levi die without children. And the two sisters, Rachel and Leah, together with those Sarahs, which we called Sarah and Rivka, fall in front of Reuven, their brother, because Reuven is a brother to both Shimon and Levi, for Yibum. So now, Reuven gives chalitza to Leah, Eshes, Shimon. And Shmuel says, cholatz li achios lo nifteru tsaros, which means that Shimon has another wife besides Leah by the name of Sarah, and Sarah is going to need her own chalitza to pater up herself. The chalitza of Reuven to Leah is not enough to pater up Sarah, the tzara. That's called lo nifteru tsaros. And we're going to apply the same exact yardstick with regard to the wife of Levi, Rachel, and Levi and Rachel had a tzara by the name of Rivka, and Rivka now is going to require a chalitza unto herself, her own chalitza on her body, because lo nifteru tsaros. Now, what's the logic here that you need a separate chalitza for the tzara? And he explains here, kevan shasuros ha'achios lisyabe. In other words, we have here achos kukasa that generates chalitza psula, and chalitza psula cannot pater up the other sisters. Each sister needs her own chalitza. So we see that Shmuel holds that even with regard to chalitza for the tsaros, there's such a thing as a chalitza psula, because again, there's already an isur there for yibum. There's no possibility of implementing and realizing the yibum. That's because of the erev of achos kukaso. Now you're a tzara of an achos kukaso, which is very similar to tzara achos ishto. And nevertheless, since these isurim are relatively light relative to the Isra Achios. Therefore, chalitzasan mu'ula mechalitzas ha'achios upochos es ha'achios. And therefore, the din of chalitzas ha'achios, that it doesn't pat up the tzoros, and it is like the chalitzas tzoros that patters up the achios. So the Gemara is asking, according to Shmuel, who holds that choletz liachios lo niftu tzoros, why did Shmuel say that in the case of three achios that fell in front of two achim, like for example, Reuven and Shimon, that Reuven gave chalitza on behalf of all three achios, and that represents all of them as if they all had chalitza. Well, when he gave chalitza to one of the achios, the one that fell secondly, that was a chalitza psula because he had already had a chalitza to her sister who fell first, and now Nesra Shnia Mishum Achotz Chalitzasa. That generates the status of chalitza psula. So why? Right? So that's a chalitza psula. He says, Madua cholitz la Ruven, Harei hecha de kaima chalitza de Shimon, chalitza kshera. Right? There's always a possibility that Shimon would give chalitza. He hasn't given chalitza to any one of the achios. And therefore, if he gave chalitza to the second one of the sisters, that would be a chalitza kshera. The afshagam al Shimon asura shniya b'yibum. So you might say that even that chalitza of Shimon is going to be a chalitza psula because he cannot be miyavima. Because b'shas nefilasa, she was achos kukasa. V'neser olav b'yibum sha'achas, and kevin shenesra sha'ach hashuv, ein lo heter olavis asur lo olavis, we call him chalitzasa ma'ula mishal chalitzas Ruven. Relative to the chalitza of Ruven, Shimon's chalitza would be ma'ula, would be on a higher level, so to speak. Shehu asur oleh mitzad achos kukasa. As far as Ruven is concerned, we're talking about achos kukasa. But Shimon, Eino Asr Oleh El Mitzad Nesra. Mitzad. I don't know what he means by Mitzad Nesra. Does he explain it? No, he doesn't give any further explanation. In Cain, now we have the problem of a contradiction to the other statement of Shmuel. How could Shmuel say Choletz la Ruven when Ruven gives chalitz to the second sister, chalitzasa psula? And it's a chalitza psula because once the first chalitza was implemented, she's asura shnia mishum achos chalitzasa, and therefore the chalitza of Ruven would be a chalitza psula, and it packers up Shimon. Why? Because Shimon could have had a chalitza kshera. And therefore, if Shmuel would be consistent, he should have said that Shimon, he should require of Shimon a second chalitza. So Gemara answers, "My echad choletz l'kulam." We interpreted echad choletz l'kulam means that one chalitza is a representative of all the brothers. Nami de Ka'omar. When Shmuel said that in Shtei Achios or Rishonos, that for sure the Rishon choletz the Rishona and the Sheni l'Shniya, and that's because it's chalitza me'ula, it's better chalitza than the Rishon. For example, he has a case of 5 brothers: Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehudi, Yisachar, and 3 sisters: Rachel, Leah, and Sarah. So Levi married Rachel. Yehuda married Leah. Yisachar married Sarah. Levi dies without children, and afterwards Yehuda dies without children. Afterwards, Yisachar died without children. And their 3 respective wives fell for him in front of Reuven and Shimon. So the din is that Reuven gives chalitza to Rachel, that's Levi's wife, because Levi died first. Shimon gives chalitza to Leah, who's the wife of Yehuda, who died second. And that's called a chalitza ma'ula mishal Ruven. That's a better chalitza than Ruven's chalitza. Because Leah is asura lo mishum achos chalutzaso, because he already gave chalitza to his sister Rachel. Shmuel amar echad chalitza kula. What did he mean when Shmuel said that one gives chalitza to all of them? I am tzayis. He's referring to Sarah, who's the wife of Yisachar, who Yisachar was the third one to die in that sequence. And since Sarah is Asura LeRuven and to Shimon, both Be'isur Achos Chalutzaso, because again, Reuven was Cholitz to Rachel Achosa, and Shimon was Cholitz to Leah Achosa. Is the Chalitzas Kol Echem Psula, because of the Isur of Achos Chalutzasa. But Zes over Shmuel, Shechalitza Psula, Eina Tzricha Lachzar Al Kol Ha'achim, V'nifteres B'chalitza Echem. So that's Shmuel's Shita, and that one Chalitza on the part of one of the Achim is representative and is valid on behalf of all the Achim. So the Gemara says, can you really say that Shmuel means to say that one is Cholitz L'Kulon when we're referring Dafka to the third sister? Ve'hashmuel Omar Cholitz L'Kulon Ka'amar. The language of Shmuel, Cholitz L'Kulon, seems to imply that the first Ach has to give Chalitza to all the Achims. L'Kulon. It's not enough that he gives one chalitz. He's got to repeat the performance over and over with regard to each one of the achims. And the Gemara says, "Kevan deruba gabe karile kulon." In other words, since there are two achios amongst the three of them, that's already a row. And he gave them chalitza, but he gave chalitza to the third of the three. So from the beginning, he gave chalitza one out of the first two rishonos. And at the end, he gave chalitza to the shlishis. That was chalitza psula. It's karile lekulon. It's considered as if one was cholitz for all of them. Iba yisema. Now the Gemara offers another answer. Shmuel sha'amar echad cholitz lekulon. Hakavana sheruven cholitz lekol ha'achitz. The Rachel shenafel tefila, the Leah shenafel shliyah, Sarah shenafel shlichis. The afshel chalitzas Ruven leLeah shenafla shniya psula mishum achos chalutzaso kvar cholatz Ruven leRachel, and therefore chalitzas Shimon is ma'ula himenu. It's better than the original chalitza of Ruven. Sherei lo cholatz li achas mea achios. Mikol nifteres Levi b'chalitzas Ruven hapsula af shechalitzas Shimon ma'ula imen. Is ki kamar Shmuel chalitza ma'alya ba'ina. Kamar Shmuel chalitza ma'alya ba'ina and ein nifteres b'chalitza psula hani milu miftar tzarasa. Now the Gemara is making a fundamental distinction. When it's a chalitza psula on this yivama, it's not going to pat the zika from a tzara. But miftar a nafsha, patra. But the yivama herself, through a chalitza, which is a chalitza psula, that's enough of a chalitza to pater of her zika from the other brothers. Even a chalitza psula, even though the chalitza of the other brothers would have been a chalitza kshera. For example, Leah patters herself with the chalitza from Ruvain, and that itself is chalitza psula. Af sheyesh kan chalitza Shimon kshera. Even though Shimon would be implementing chalitza kshera, but nevertheless it's not necessary because her chalitza patters up her zika. And that's all that we need. So tomorrow, Mr. Shem will get more into Shmuel, What I'd like to do now, because of my strange schedule today, is to take a look on Daf Lamed Hey Amud Beis. Eisvei Rabbi Yochanan Lireish Lakish, which is the second of the wide lines on Daf Lamed Hey Amud Beis. So you remember that Reish Lakish said that when you give chalitza to Muberes, and we cannot know whether or not she's going to carry to term and deliver a viable baby or chas shoma nefel, then that chalitza is not a valid chalitza because the Torah says ubein ein lo ayin bo. So Rabbi Yochanan raises the following question from the beginning of our Mishnah. It says that acholeitz liavim tovinim tzeis Muberes, he gave chalitza to Yevamot, and then he discovers that she was me'uberes, is ein havlad shel kayama.